what's your biggest pet peeve?
Golly, that's a good question. Climate change was something with not only a certainty, it was a certainty that the insurance market could play a role in. Everyone knows something is going to happen. It's just a question of time. There's something that you can do in your career about the impact of that. I always felt that the market could do a lot by hiring people from outside of the insurance market first. People who've come straight from university or not from university, or people from outside in other careers, you'll be amazed how much scope that has got for our industry. And there are almost limitless ways that we can apply that type of very simple thinking into all sorts of different exposures, which we are really going to have to do something very serious about as a global community over the next 10 years. We are seeing money flowing into populations who'd never consider accessing the insurance market before. But what this is doing is giving them choice and agency and some money up front when things look like they're going to go wrong.
If you were very early in your career, what are your things that you would say?
I think that the key is...
So today we're talking to Charlie Langdale, the head of climate risk and resilience at Howden. Charlie's been in the insurance industry for over 25 years and building the climate risk and resilience team for about 2 years now. So today we're going to be discussing the role that the insurance has in the future of our planet, how Charlie has developed the team working on climate risk solutions, and what led him to insurance in the first place. So thank you very much for joining us, Charlie.
Oh, thanks for having me.
No worries. So just a couple of questions to get to know you a little bit. How would your friends describe you?
Golly, that's a good question. I don't know. I think they probably describes me as someone with multiple different interests. You know, I love the countryside, but I also I'm a paraglider pilot, for example. I do lots of different things, and I think they describe me as somebody who probably is fairly passionate about the subjects I get involved with, and determined, I think, probably.
That's a great way of describing you, especially with so many hobbies. Mm-hmm. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
I wanted to be as independent as I could. So I wanted to be able to do something which gave me as many choices and allowed me to do, things that interested me.
That sounds hopefully like you've satisfied that with what you're doing now.
Time, yeah.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
I think in a business sense or overall, do you think?
We'll do personal sense and business sense.
Oh golly. I think that I get cross when people. Well, I just feel that that it just is so important just be blunt and tell the truth. And it really annoys me when you have to spend a very long time trying to get through to the truth, but actually you all know right from the beginning where you're going to lead, and that always. I just like people being upfront.
Yeah, I mean, in both senses, that's probably true, personally and professionally. And just to kind of break up the career related, what is your go-to takeaway order? If you were going to get a takeaway.
Okay, right. I love Honest Burger. There's one in Bermondsey, and we're going to go takeaway. That's what I'll go for.
Good choice.
Yeah.
That's quite a kind of not expensive, but like high class takeaway order, I would say.
Well, I think probably, that's what I go for.
Amazing. So just a little bit of getting into how you got into your role at the moment. How did you start your career? What is a little bit of a kind of summary of your professional education background at the beginning? So we're thinking 18.
18, right? Onwards. So 18. Yeah, my favourite subject at school was geography. So I like geography. I liked understanding what made the world as it is. So I struggled to work out how I could link that into a career at all. So I sort of I thought it was a great subject because it gave me a nice broad view of of all sorts of different things, but it didn't feel very applicable to any sort of career I could go into. So I decided to try and just find out what various jobs looked like, to see if I could get some work experience in different places. And at 18, I ended up sitting on a box in Lloyd's for a week. So I went into the Lloyd's market, had the chance to sit in between two underwriters and see what they actually did for a living. And what I found out was that they sat at their desk and waited for a insurance broker to turn up at their desk, and that insurance broker would try and persuade the underwriter to take a risk on. And I just thought, well, I could probably do that. So I thought I'd give that a go. So I tried to get a job in that sector, but it didn't, at the time, couldn't really work out how that would relate to some of the other interests I had. And it's taken me a long time to sort of meld those things together.
Merge the two interests.
Yes.
I think so. Are you from London? Are you from
no, I live in Sussex.
You live in Sussex, okay. Not too far.
No.
Not too far.
Commutable just.
Yeah, just about. So were you, did you start at Lloyd's, and then is that how you've ended up at
I joined a graduate scheme at a broker called Bain Hogg, which after 2 years, or 2 weeks of being there, 2 years, was bought by Aon. And suddenly I found myself in Aon, which is a very large insurance broker, and my early years were there. But I went for various different sort of graduate type traineeship roles to begin with, and it took me a very long time to get that one. I think I had at least 20 interviews before I got a job, but in the end, someone picked me up.
Yeah, and now you're still in the same industry, which I think is pretty impressive.
I know. Yeah.
Although what your role is now is a little bit different to what you would first starting out doing.
Yes.
How would you describe what is the climate risk and resilience team? What is it that you specialise in as part of your team?
Well, I think it became pretty clear to me that without doing a huge amount of research, but just my own common sense, that climate change was something with not only a certainty, it was a certainty that the insurance market could play a role in. And it's very rare that you have in your career a moment where everyone knows something is going to happen. It's just a question of time and extent. And so when those moments happen where you can see just by reading the paper, there is this absolute certainty. We don't know exactly how bad it's going to be or when it's going to be. There is something that you can do in your career about the impact of that. It became pretty obvious that I should try and work out how to do something, really.
Support that using the insurance tools.
Yeah, using the insurance market. Now, it was twofold. Not only did I think the insurance market has a role to play in trying to deal with some of the future uncertainty we all have, which climate change is one of probably the most existential we have, but also I thought that it was a place that the insurance market should be involved with commercially.
Yeah,
there's a huge opportunity for insurance there. The insurance market has not grown massively over my career. It's basically just above inflation. I've always been a bit disappointed by that. And I felt that this is an area that has the potential to massively grow what the insurance market can do, and also at the same time try and help society, and nature deal with the sorts of problems that climate change are going to cause and are causing at the moment.
Absolutely. I suppose if there's something that is an increasing interest and really desperate need for the whole of society, then there's also going to be a benefit of getting involved in that from both sides. And
at the same time, the insurance market, that I've grown up with has done lots of very interesting things, but I don't think it's been brilliant at exploring these sorts of new opportunities. And I just felt that working in an organisation like Howden and being in a position I was in at the time, that I'd be able to, call people and ring people who weren't in the insurance market and get them to bring some expertise to the table and some ideas, and try and see if we can use the tools that I've learned to use here and put them to different use.
That's great. I think we'll talk a little bit about the team and the kind of projects you're working on. But you mentioned what's changed since you first started.
Yes.
And I suppose that one of them is new markets you're looking at. But is there anything else that's kind of fundamentally changed in the insurance industry since you started working?
I think that there has been, in the mid-90s, when I joined insurance, most of the market was run by 55-year-old English blokes, basically running books of business that they'd had for many, many years. And I think that is one of the things which had made it a little bit less nimble than I expected. So when I started, I always felt that the market could do a lot by hiring people from outside of the insurance market first, i.e. people who've come straight from university or not from university, or people from outside in other careers, to bring different type of perspective into the market and use the tools that the insurance market has been so good at developing over the years, especially modelling tools and understanding risk, but looking at it through a different lens. Especially so during my career, once I had a chance to start to hire people, I've always tried to hire people from other sectors to try and just build a different way of thinking about things. So I think I've really seen that change and accelerate in the last sort of 5 or 10 years, where we now have a real much broader range of backgrounds in the market, and it's really changing the market for good.
That's great. You'd end up with more creativity there as well, and then a bit more flexibility and kind of new ways of looking at things, which is exactly what you want when the world's changing so much. What's something about the insurance industry that's surprised you recently?
I think that its ability to deal with the sort of problems of the here and now. If you think about what's going on in the world, the massive natural disasters which are hitting everywhere from Florida to the wildfires in California, and the ability of the insurance market to pick up these massive financial claims, recover from them, and then issue policies again the next year is quite a remarkable thing if you think about it. So while I think the insurance market has got a massive opportunity and a huge way to try and do much, much more, even in its own way now, it's pretty remarkable how it continues to deal with some of these major disasters that we've seen over the last 10 years and recover and pay those claims and come back for more.
Absolutely. I mean, just thinking about that natural disaster, which I think is something that your team would deal with, is there anything you could talk about? I know that you've worked with Red Cross. Is there an example of a project that you could give to showcase the kind of work you would be doing, working as an insurance with climate risk and helping with that? Okay,
so on the climate risk side, I think that the entire point of insurance is to give people a chance to get prepared for the future. So there's lots of ways that you can get prepared for the future. You can build your house out of stronger materials. But one of the things you can do is you can get financially prepared. And what financially prepared means is that you know that you're going to have access to some money if something happens to you or your family or community, which is an adverse event. Okay, so insurance is just another word for getting prepared. That's what this is about. And what one of our aims is to help people all over the world get better prepared for the sorts of things that climate change are going to cause, and natural disasters is one of them. So, for example, we've run a number of projects this year where we've helped vulnerable communities buy insurance to protect themselves against their crops being washed away. But the example you referred to, the Red Cross, is to do with volcanoes. So the Red Cross is a global organisation providing disaster relief across the globe. And one of the things it really needs is instant access to money when something goes wrong. Now, of course, the Red Cross is very good at making appeals. So after the event, so the disaster occurs, and after the event, it can raise lots of money and try and help bring, food, water, and shelter to the people most affected. But if you can get that money into the Red Cross's offices locally, where the disaster happens, as the disaster's unfolding, you can have a huge amount of more impact. You're going to give some certainty to the charity on the ground about what money they're going to get and how they're going to use it very, very early. So what we did is we put a program together with the Red Cross for 10 volcanoes around the world, volcanoes which are very close to large populations, which the Red Cross knew that they would have to spend a lot of time, effort and money looking after in the event of an eruption. And we basically put an insurance program which triggered on the plume of ash coming out of a volcano as an indication of the size of an eruption. So as the ash explodes from a volcano and as it reaches certain heights, the Office of the Red Cross in that particular location would receive sums of money within 12 or 48 hours of that plume achieved. So it's an indication of a forthcoming disaster. So that program's been running now for 2 years, and we've had some quite close calls. It's not yet triggered. But we have a number of other projects very similar where we are now starting to they are starting to trigger claims, and we are seeing money flowing into populations who would never consider accessing the insurance market before. But what this is doing is giving them choice and agency and some money up front when things look like they're going to go wrong.
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing that that's even a thing within insurance. I've never imagined that would be something that we'd be working with in the insurance industry, are those more vulnerable communities. Well, it's not just the communities. It's also there's many nature-based projects out there. We were involved with a project this year for coral reefs. So, for example, coral reefs are incredibly fascinating biodiverse environments, and they are being more and more bleached by basically global warming, and also they are being sometimes damaged by storms. And so what we're trying to do is to encourage some organisations out there who basically create nurseries. So what you do is you take some coral reef, you create a nursery in a safe area, and you grow sometimes storm-resistant corals, but you basically create a nursery so that if there's a damage to a coral reef, the coral reef can be repaired. But the thing about the investment required to do those nurseries is that you need an insurance policy around the entire project, so that if actually there is some bleaching or the coral reef does get blown out of the water, the nursery can replace it, and then there's the money to spend doing the next nursery and the next sort of range of so all of these projects have a very common theme. All insurance does is it either does two things. It gets people prepared, and that allows them to make choices. Mm. And secondly, it allows people to invest in things, because they know that once they've put an investment in, say, for example, a coral reef nursery, that even if an event happens, which nowadays is happening more and more often, their investment won't be lost because it will be replaced by insurance. And I think that once those very, very simple concepts are understood, and you have a chance to explain them to people outside the insurance market, you'll be amazed how much scope that has got for our industry. And there are almost limitless ways that we can apply that type of very simple thinking into all sorts of different exposures, which we are really going to have to do something very serious about as a global community over the next 10 years. I think it's amazing when you think of it as actually anyone that wants to invest in something that insurance is part of, then the types of climate-related or environmental projects that you could get involved in are limitless, but like you said, because there's so many things that need support, and that level of protection from having insurance would mean that they could go ahead. Exactly. So so it's great to hear about some of the environmental projects that you're kind of supporting. Yeah. And
we're accelerating those as well. We're hoping that over time we'll be able to support maybe 150 to 200 projects like a year, design the insurance projects for them, hopefully raise money for them as well. What's happening in the world at the moment, I think, is fascinating, is that as a commercial entity out there like Howden trying to grow our business, it's absolutely compatible with charitable endeavours and other sort of work which has been done around the world to try and protect ourselves against the problems of tomorrow. Totally compatible, which I never would really have thought of in the past.
You'd think that they would be kind of opposite sides of the spectrum, with kind of financial services and then some charitable charitable sector
Yeah.
kind of coming together.
Yeah.
And just thinking about your team, you mentioned your route into this team and interest with geography,
Yeah.
kind of merging together. What are the types of backgrounds you have in your team, and how could other people be working within this area of the business?
Yeah, no, well, that's a good question. I mean, and it took me, nearly 20 years to try and work out how to use the things that I was interested in my career. And I think that's something that people should never lose sight of. And it's something that people should consider very much when they try and get their first job or join the market from another sector. The key is in this space is you've got to follow your interests. And so that's easy to spot when we're interviewing people. So what we've done, and we set up the climate risk and resilience team. When I set that up in our holding company a couple of years ago, I wanted to find people who could bring very different ideas to this whole piece. So we hired people from the humanitarian sector itself. We've got a lady called Caroline Birch, who spent 20 years administering disaster relief on the ground in some very difficult parts of the world. So she brought an incredibly fresh view of really what's needed when what actually happens to the £10 million when it drops into the bank account of a charity somewhere around the world. What are they going to do with the money, and how are we going to make sure that that's looked after? And we hired people from the banking sector, because we wanted to understand how banks and financiers are lending money to try and increase resilience, and try and understand how we could meld insurance with that. We've got people from marketing backgrounds, and who are, because we need to get our message across, and we've got someone from a sort of an NGO background. So and lawyers, for example. So it's just a question of making sure that if you think you've got an idea that you think is interesting, you've got to test that idea on as many people as you possibly can. And if you have a team of people sitting around you who have different ways of looking at things, then what that allows you to do is to sort the wheat and chaff of those ideas in a really efficient way. And because you don't end up by everybody thinking the same. It's about, wait a minute, Charlie, that's just not going to work, because this doesn't work like that over here. So hiring as many people from, especially if you're trying to appeal to business internationally, you want to have quite a broad spread of cultures in your team as well, so you understand the people you're going to be selling to. So there's nothing beats that type of teams that look and feel like that, if that's what you're trying to achieve.
I think that's so valuable, and also to hear that you aren't just taking people from exactly the same path, and that it's really broad. If you were very early in your career, 18, interested in environmental issues, climate change, and you wanted to find a role within your team and found this interesting, what are some of the tips, tools, qualifications? What are your things that you would say?
Yeah, I think that the key is that someone can have a good CV, and that's a great thing. But the key for me is how they demonstrate a passion for the subject that they're interested in. Because I know that, we're a business built on the courage of people's convictions. Howden's a great brand, but we expect people to put their own reputation on the line and use the force of their own personality to achieve things and be more determined than the next person. And all of that requires people to be genuinely interested in what they're doing. And actually, yes, I've been lucky. I've been given the chance to do something in a space that I'm interested in. But I did spend 20 years doing directors and officers in professional liability insurance, and I found that fascinating as well, And I hope I put a lot of passion into that too. So, when you get under the skin of a subject, but to answer your question a bit more, I don't know if I can or not, but it's not about whether you're a great sort of salesperson or very extrovert or whatever. I think that, if you come to an interview with something that which is specific to the sorts of job you're trying to get, it makes a big difference. And so when I started this climate risk and resilience piece, or even when I was running financial lines here, I did want to understand if people read the paper in the morning and took an interest in what was going on around them, and can because I think that actually is sort of what we need to uncover the opportunities, really.
Yeah, I suppose it's not just relying on you to see what that future looks like. You need everyone in the team to have an interest. And
totally, and everyone develops at different stages in their career. I mean, so David Howden was setting up an insurance broker in his 20s, so it took me until I was well into my 40s to decide to do something in the climate space. So I don't think everyone has to rush it. I just feel that, it's worth going into these things with a little bit of a plan in your mind of what it is that is going to make that role and that job actually exciting and enjoyable for you. And it might be just that you really like the people that you're talking to, and that's it. Or it may be the success of winning business. That's fantastic too. But you've just got, I think, identifying what that is early is a really key thing, and that's what I found as I've gone through my career anyway.
Yeah, and nurturing that, even if it's not a central part of your role at that time, and making sure you're still doing that.
Yeah.
What's the future looking like for your team? And I know you mentioned earlier that you're bringing new people into the team, and it seems like you're creating a lot of partnerships externally. Is there anything, that's on the horizon?
So we are. The good news is that Howden is a very visionary business, and because we are, we've got this not unique but really interesting shareholder base of employees and external shareholders who really look long term into the future. It's meant that this whole subject of long term climate change or medium term climate change and what we can do is almost perfect for Howden as an organisation to champion globally. So that's meant that it's allowed me to persuade people here to invest in that, and so we will be building our climate resilience business over the next this year, and we hope to make that market leading in all sorts of different areas, and hopefully you'll see some of that happening soon.
It's really exciting. I think that becoming a greener, more sustainable business by actually utilising those insurance tools to make a difference is something that I haven't seen.
You've got to do both. So you can be extremely green and sustainable by making absolutely sure all of your own processes are good, and you have a fabulous ESG policy, and you've got to really, and by the way, we're on a journey there. We've got a fabulous CSR capability in Howden, but we're still on our own journey. But I've always felt that we are in the business of taking risks. So if we only did that and didn't make use of this risk-taking machine, which is the insurance market, and the incredible balance sheets out there, and show people how useful that would be to try and help us mitigate, adapt to these things, then we've failed completely.
Yeah.
So we have to do both.
I think that's. Yeah, I can completely see that. Having worked in some of the CSR projects and things like that, being able to merge the two is great. Just thinking about, what's the biggest challenge that you are facing at the moment? What's the biggest thing that you're struggling with in your role or in the business right now?
I think that it's people thinking too short term, and I can totally appreciate that. We are a very successful business, extremely profitable and doing very well, and we've got to drive ourselves on a sort of quarterly basis, and we've got to make sure we win the clients. And I ran a large division here for many years. I totally understand that, but I feel sometimes if we don't get the balance between short-term goals and the long term, we're going to do ourselves a huge disservice.
Absolutely, especially when you've got people coming in entry level or
we want 25-year-olds to join our business to have a career when they're 50.
Yeah.
There's very few organisations who can plan like that, and we can do it, but we've got to be very brave about it.
We're in the business of risk, so I suppose you've got to be a bit like that.
Well, and the other thing, we've got to accept failure as well. I mean, what happens to be, when I joined this business in my 20s, and I was a very young, inexperienced, person running a small team of 4 people, David said, right, make as many decisions as you need, and I don't care how many failures, as long as most of them are successes, you know. And that's actually a flavour of our business now. So we do lots and lots of things, and I've done tons of things which have not worked in this business. And in the last 2 years, I've done things which have been complete failures. Luckily, some of the stuff I've done has been successes too, and people tend to forget the failures and concentrate on the successes. And I think that people all the way through their career should be brave enough to do that and make sure that they're, you know, that they I mean, it's worth it, basically, is what I'm saying.
I think especially thinking about people that are getting into their careers, not feeling too afraid of trying something and failing potentially. But seeing it's nice to hear that in the last 2 years you've had failures as part of this team as well.
You know, I've always had failures. You know? Always, yeah. So I mean, we just got to be brave enough to and hopefully working in an organisation where people accept that. You know, but I mean, teams are a good. You know, you can have lots and lots of ideas, and the wheat and chaff sorting of those is important too. So, not doing things on your own is great, but share ideas and don't worry about the consequences of that sharing. And in the end, you know, your teams will be successful, and you'll be successful as well.
In a kind of new market that you're in or newer, how are you creating those connections with others? Obviously, with other areas of the insurance business, we're well known. Well,
you have to be very open with what your ideas are. So if you come up with, you know, in my situation, which, you know, if you come up with things that you think could further these overall aims, which are growing the insurance market and allowing insurance to be used in places not used at the moment, those are two things driving me, then you need to work out plans for how you're going to achieve that. So once you've worked out a whole range of things that you think are going to help with those goals, you've just got to tell everyone about it and not care about people stealing your ideas, you know? Because as soon as you start getting worried about your own IP and how impressive you are for coming up with something, that sort of hubris is the end of everything. So if you go out to people and you're generous and you offer up everything you've got to them as much as you can, then you will break into new markets and people will come and join you, if nothing else, or they'll want you in part of their club. And so that's been a bit of a journey for us in the climate resilience space. We had a few ideas, some didn't work, a few are working, and the ones that are working are going to work spectacularly well, and people want to be part of that, and that's how we've grown it so far, so quickly.
It's letting go of that ego of this is my...
Just cannot be too... And the idea that people don't... The eureka moments in insurance don't happen. So you're always going to be melding or changing or moving someone else's idea anyway. So just get over yourself and just tell everyone what it is and let them do it. And if they, you know, and once you've come up with something, give it to somebody else, let them have it and do the next one. Don't hang on to stuff yourself. It's a terrible disease of insecurity. As soon as you've got to give up ideas to other people very quickly and move on to the next ones, and to allow people to grow their own careers and make something of stuff that you've started if you can. That's my sort of overall feeling, and that's what we're doing in the climate risk and resilience piece now.
Over the past 2 years, is there something that you're really proud of that you've achieved as a team or individually?
Yeah, I think so. I think that we've... Oh gosh, there's lots of things. They're difficult to point to one. I'm proud of lots of stuff, and maybe it's a bit sort of egotistical in its own way. I think the thing I'm most proud of, we had this Howden is quite an amazing organisation in many ways. So we had this idea that we wanted to allow charities and communities around the world to access the insurance market. And when we started trying to work out why they weren't accessing the market, even though they have, I mean, you know, my God, a charity administering disaster relief around the world, my God, we price that type of thing in the market. So why can't, and they don't use the insurance market because they haven't got any money, you know? Yeah. And it's, so I decided that we should be trying to set something up in the private sector to allow vulnerable communities around the world and charities access the insurance market in the same way that we all take for granted. And I think the thing I'm proudest of, one of the teams I was running at the time, I sent an email out to 200 people asking them to contribute a portion of their future earnings on one of the schemes we ran. And you know, we got £5 million out of that. It was an amazing thing. So I think that I realised that the people in this organisation really feel very strongly about what insurance really can do, and are fed up with people thinking insurance a rather boring staid career, when actually it's probably can have more influence in some of these areas than almost any other part of financial services. And this was sort of a chance for us to sort of put that on the table, make that mark, and show people, but not from maybe a massively rich donor in America somewhere, but actually from the people on the floor in the organisation itself. So that was quite a moment, and I realised that moment that we were going to be successful, and we're now setting up a sort of charitable trust, which is going to basically allow those types of organisations like communities and charities access more than $2 billion worth of insurance capacity every year.
That's amazing.
Just as a result of that type of thinking. It's probably the thing, I think that will end up as being something really special once we get it going.
It's also an example of the changing, or just the headspace of the people that work here, not being what someone might think as a typical person working in insurance, but actually how high up the priority list those sustainable projects supporting vulnerable communities, supporting charities is for the people that are here.
And I think, but it's not just that. I mean, there are not everybody is driven by that, right? There are some people some people, but it applies to all types of careers in Howden. I mean, I think we have this fabulous M&A team in Howden now. It's the biggest team in the market. It's about 130 people in it. We started that team off in 2012 with 2 people straight from university who no experience of insurance at all, because we were trying to break a bit of a mould. And it is the most successful team in the market now. Okay, maybe that's taken 10 years, but so I think that it doesn't have to be. I think you can. If you can see an angle in any area, whether it's climate change, an obvious thing for the insurance market, at that time, that piece seemed obvious to me then. It doesn't. I think ultimately, as long as you've got good people around you, you can sort wheat and chaff quickly, and you've got the people backing you to allow you to take ideas forward, you'll be okay.
Yeah. So if you've got an idea and you could see somewhere where there's a risk that could be supported by insurance, there's an emerging market that needs some sort of investment that could be supported, then there would be a place here, regardless of what that industry is.
Absolutely. That's the bottom line. To
kind of give someone a bit of, that can't imagine being here or being in your team, what does a typical day look like for you or for someone in the team?
Right, so I'll try and describe what it was when we first set it up, because so I had a lady called Victoria working with me, and we was the team of 3 or 4 at the time, and so basically what we were doing every day was testing our ideas. So I would come in the morning and go, right, who are we going to ring up now? Who are we going to go and see? Who can we go and talk to about this to see if this is a thing, or if it's going to work? And so some percent it's right. Who's really good at working a conference? Who do I know who goes into a seminar and comes out with 25 business cards? I'm awful at that. I'm way too shy, so I can't do it. So I will go to those conferences with someone who I know is just brilliant at that, and we'll come out and then we'll ring all those people up afterwards and go and see them and test tons of stuff. And then in the end, a day there's lots and lots. If you've just got to get in front of people, you've got to meet people face to face, not on Teams, face to face, and you've got to talk around your subject in a way that it's just a question of. So our early days were testing and testing and testing and testing, with internally as well as externally, and then trying to understand whether and have enough support from the business to allow you to spend some time and effort and money doing that. In fact, actually, I did that a lot when I was in the financial lines team. I probably spent for the last 2 years at least 30% of my time testing these things before I was at a point where I could go to David with an idea.
Yeah.
And then, so it's a constant, and even now, everything is a constant process of testing and retesting and, and talking to people and interacting and, but that's what I do, okay?
Yeah.
But I've got other people in the team who are, sort of on the data analytics side who spend the time building climate models. So it's just, horses for courses,
But all of that, regardless of the role, is testing, checking,
checking and testing, talking to people about it, being, lockdown was tough for our team, I think, because it's really, we want ideas, and it's very, very difficult, even on a quiet, I think, hopefully quite open team environment, for someone who's just joined to book an appointment with their boss to ask them a stupid question.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're sitting in the office, you can tap someone on the shoulder and say, look, by the way, I got this right, I got this wrong. And I just think fostering that type of environment in the world we live in today is tricky. So we've just got to be doubly put more effort into that side of things.
I think especially in your industry, you want to be in front of those people that you will be potentially working with in the future, from the climate change industry.
Exactly.
Being in front of them in person when they might not be used to working with anyone that works in insurance is so important as well.
Totally.
Those personal relationships are
and always
one.
Keep in mind, what the prize is. So why are we going to go and see these people, and what are we talking about? What do they want? And you've got to be, so it's a testing and testing, and but at the same time with a back of your mind a very clear view of what you're trying to achieve, so that when things don't work, you know when to kill them off. Yeah. And that applies to all the way through a career, by the way, So you can be incredibly determined. And that's amazing. And that, because some things take 5 years to work, and I have projects where it has taken 5 years for them to work. And sometimes that determination is bad, because it means you're going to pursue things which aren't going to work, and you've got to be brave enough to kill them off as well.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of leads me on nicely to, I was going to ask what advice you would give to your younger self. I think when I joined the market, you mean, or beforehand? A sort of professional kind of advice.
So I completely misunderstood what I was going to enjoy out of the job. I liked the idea of insurance broking, because I felt that I could own a group of clients, and I could broke those business into the market, and I could make my own decisions. And actually what I really enjoyed was the interaction with the people in the team, and building something where I could see skills that I didn't have, and knowing that if I gave something up, I'd get something back in return. And that I found incredibly interesting, that it was so successful, and much more successful than what I thought I was going to be good at. So it's strange. I think sometimes you just got to, I think I wish I was a little bit more, a bit more confident, basically. So thanks.
Yeah, if you're in the business of the building teams, that's which is what you're doing at the moment, and it seems like that was the thing that you were really interested in, is those different skills.
I think in the early days, I think what it was is you've got, I suppose, I always think that you've got to have a little bit of a plan back of your mind, I think. No job's going to be a 9-to-5 job. I think I always feel that's, you've got to think, what is the opportunity around the corner which I'm going to put myself out there and ask if I can do, whether, or not, even if it means I get knocked back 10 times, just that I think I should have done more of that earlier in my career. I should have been braver about some of the things I wanted to do, but it took me, at least a couple of decades to get that confident. And I see people now who have that when they're 20, and that's amazing, and they get the chances then. But this doesn't mean that someone who's 35 can't then. Yeah. It's just a question of when the right time for those people, you know.
Asking the questions, getting involved in things that are outside of their remit. And just a bit of, I suppose, to think about insurance, just as some of the last questions. What do you think that is a common myth about the insurance industry?
I think that people think it's boring. It's not boring, some of the most fascinating parts of insurance are in our claims teams, where you're actually seeing the results of what the insurance market can do to pick up the pieces for some horrendous things that happen around the world. Now, obviously, lots of things in life are boring, like endless administration, but insurance itself is not the boring bit. Yeah. I think that's a misconception. Also, I think there's a misconception that there's a lack of opportunity in the insurance market, because the market has, it's probably more opportunity in insurance than almost any other financial services area, I think, because the market's concentrated for so long on insuring the risks of yesterday. The fact that there is the same platforms can insure the risks of tomorrow as well. I mean, my God, what opportunity is that? So I think that's also a misconception.
In terms of career development, that's pretty exciting for someone that's so future focused as a business.
And at the end of the day, insurance doesn't work unless you can explain it in a simple way to someone who might buy it. So you've got to match the people in the insurance market with the people who might be buyers. So you need all types of people to do that, and people who can simplify things and make things understandable, as well as people who are scientists or actuaries. And people who can, display things in a way that makes people understand stuff better. It takes all types of people.
That's good to hear. Is there any advice that you would give to listeners that just thinking of starting in this industry, or on the back of this thought, actually, I could see a career there?
I think my only advice is do your own bit of research. Check out what it is in the insurance market that interests you particularly. If it's like sports and entertainment insurance, check out what that looks like. There's tons of stuff you can see for yourself what that looks like in the market. Or if it's climate, look at that. And once you've done a bit of your own research, you've just got to be determined, and in the end you'll get something. It's just a question of, because determination wins on everything else. It doesn't matter how good your qualifications are. If you're more certain that you want it, you'll get it in the end. I mean, it sounds a bit trite to say so, but that's definitely just my experience over time. And insurance is not rocket science. And if you can't understand it with common sense, you can't sell it.
I think that's fair enough. It feels like any industry in the world that you can think of, you could work in insurance to support that industry.
Absolutely.
Anything you've got an interest in, then you can find something in this industry to do with that. Just for my final question, what's your biggest takeaway that you hope that listeners would get from the conversation today?
Well, I'm just hoping that people will listen to this, might think, if they've never come across the insurance market before, might think, I tell you what, I might have a look at that. And that's all I can ask for. No more than that. I'm not expecting, I think that is important, because we struggled in early days attracting people who didn't have a ready-made route in, and or who will start another career, and we need that talent in the market badly now.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening, everyone. And if you've enjoyed this episode and found it informative and thought-provoking, please visit our website and let us know if you want to be notified of any new episodes, and leave a rating and review wherever you're listening. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.